Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, True Crime with Jess Rose. And like I mentioned in my last video, which was Tear Sharp, tonight I'd like to discuss with you the Soham murders. Awful case. I remember this one well. It goes back to the 4th of August 2002, and it was actually called The Crime That Broke Britain's Hearts. It was just awful. And so I'll start. It was obviously in the village of Soham in Cambridgeshire. Close-knit community, one school, St Andrews, one shop. Very safe place, you would think, to bring up your children. And two little girls, two 10-year-old girls, Holly Wells and Jessica Chapman, close friends, go to school together. They're at a family barbecue that afternoon, and at some point they asked their parents, can we go to the shop just to get some sweets? And because they were going together, they weren't going on their own, the parents said, yeah, it's fine, off you pop, go and get the sweets. But it gets to about 8:30 that evening, and the parent, obviously with the family barbecue and there's stuff going on, it's summer, it's a light evening, I don't think anyone realised they hadn't come back from the shop. So they automatically start looking, alarm bells are ringing. These are two, not one, two 10-year-old girls, smart, responsible, not the type to just wander off without letting the parents know. So immediately phone the police. Something's gone terribly wrong here. And the police automatically put it as a high risk case. The red flags are up. And there's a photo distributed, with the missing leaflets and flowers and everything else. And it's the last picture of the two little girls at the family barbecue, and they've both got on red Man United t-shirts. And that kind of became iconic with this case, because you've just got these pretty little girls, one blonde, one brunette, matching football shirts, looking so happy. It's the last photo that was taken of them, and it touched everybody, and everyone was just thinking, God, there's two of them, they've got to be found. So 500 volunteers were out in force over the next couple of days. They just disappeared off the face of the earth. And in that time, the parents have done a press conference, and in the show, sorry, this is from Faking It Tears of a Crime, not the past couple of videos. And in the show, it does state that because, most missing stories, obviously Tear Sharp, stepfather, Shannon Matthew, Karen, it's usually the immediate family. So both families are looked at, houses are, searched, and there's nothing found. The parents are completely just beside themselves. They're not involved at all. They do a press conference and, they break down, they look in shock, and just countrywide, everyone's hearts went out to them, just hoping these two little girls would come home safe. So, like I said, the press was there in force, and seeing what was going on, and all they all congregated at the village hall to send out search parties. This was a small village. Everyone came together. Everyone knew these little girls. They were lovely little girls. No one could believe what was happening. And while the press is there, they do interviews with members of the community. And one of their interviews happened to be with a 28-year-old man called Ian Huntley. Now, Ian was the school caretaker, and he loved to be involved with everything. And basically, on the day that the girls left the barbecue and went to the shop, there's CCTV footage of them walking through a petrol station, car park. Now that's the last known footage, no ever footage, of these two girls. And just off camera, the police would have realised they would have had to walk past Ian Huntley's house, the school caretaker. But rather, when that footage was released to the public, showing, the last known movements of the girls, he contacted them, he contacted the police and said, I might have been the last person to see them. So he's interviewed and, he's playing the real caring role in the community, trying to help where he can. So when the press are there, they want to get interviews with members of the community. And one of the reporters was Jeremy Thompson for Sky News. I've heard of him, he's quite a famous reporter. And he does an interview with Ian Huntley. And, straight away Ian wanted to get across that he didn't really know the girls. They approached him. And the reason for that is Ian Huntley had a partner called Maxine Carr, who was 25. And he was the school caretaker. She was an assistant teacher at this school. Like I say, there's only one school in this village. And she'd done a stint as an assistant, but when it comes to the end of the school year, to break up for the summer, she didn't get the job. She didn't get taken on by the school. So apparently these two girls came over to Ian Huntley, who was out grooming his dog, and said, they were really sorry she didn't get the job, and, they'll miss her, and can he say hello to her for us? And he said that was it, and they walked off down towards, there's like a little gully, and that's where they went. And he gives this report to Jeremy Thompson, and it seems plausible. He's very, believable in what he's telling. Although Jeremy Thompson did admit afterwards he thought he was a little bit shifty, but nothing to the point of, questioning him or anything. So while this is being shown, like I say, on Faking It Tears of a Crime, you've got three experts, and they look at this interview with Ian Huntley, and we couldn't see, although Jeremy Thompson did say he looks shifty, but, the watcher was saying he does pretend sadness in his eyebrows. He makes a lot of gestural sleeps. The listener, she said he's a person who mixes truth with lies, which makes them a very dangerous person. They base their lies on an actual truth. It's very hard to catch them out. So while this is going on, on the show, they also show that Jeremy Thompson, did an interview with Maxine Carr, Ian Huntley's partner, and her interview was really odd, because when Jeremy Thompson asked about the girls, she was talking about them in the past tense. Holly had made her a card, so it seems like these girls really did have a bond with Maxine as their assistant teacher, and Holly had made her a card saying, we're really sorry that you didn't get the job and we'll miss you. And she holds it up to the camera so the camera can see. So she just happens to be carrying it around with her. But she's saying Jessica and Holly, they both were lovely girls, and look what Holly made for me. She was such a lovely girl. Everything was in the past tense. And when Jeremy Thompson come off camera, his editor said, did you notice she was talking in the past tense? She was talking about the girls in the past tense. So very, very odd. Well, time's going by now. There's, like I say, no sign of these girls. They have disappeared into the night. But the police are becoming very suspicious of Ian Huntley himself. He always seems to be there at any gatherings. He constantly wants to know what's going on. He's faking helpfulness in a way. He just seemed very shifty. In the meantime, there's a call, and it's a woman who's seen these interviews on Sky, and says, you do know that school caretaker and guy you interviewed was wanted for rape in Grimsby. Now, Ian Huntley was originally from Grimsby, and which is 100 miles away from Cambridgeshire, and he had to leave because he was suspected in 8 different counts of sexual assault and rape of very young girls. But they'd never managed to get a conviction. One of these girls was 11 years old, and somehow they never managed to have enough evidence to convict this man, which left him free to go anywhere he wanted in the country. And he happens to choose, Soham with his partner, who also, by the way, is aware of his history. She was there in Grimsby, Humberside with him. As these two come to Soham and, speak to the school headmaster saying, we want to get married, we want to start a family here. He lands the job of caretaker. She thinks she can, also get in as assistant. It's shocking that this was allowed to happen, but at that time, 2002, the police didn't have that database, and share information. So it's just shocking that was allowed to happen. And like I said, this woman phoned up, recognised Ian Huntley, and also another witness phoned up. Now, on the day Holly and Jessica went missing, Maxine is Ian's alibi and says they were together all evening. Well, someone phones up and says, actually, there's no way she could have been with Ian all evening because she was in Grimsby, where they were originally from, visiting family. How did they think that would never get found out? They're appearing on Sky News, they're appearing on... some of these people, yes, I've said it before, are so ballsy. Can be so stupid, daft. You've just done something like that, and I don't know what she obviously knew he was involved, but she goes on TV knowing she was 100 miles away, when she's supposed to be his alibi. Anyway, so on August the 16th, 2002, they're brought in for questioning, Ian and Maxine, and they're in there for 7 hours. And there was a press release saying a 28-year-old man and a 25-year-old girl had been brought in for questioning. Didn't give any names, but Jeremy Thompson did say it matched the ages. He thinks it's Ian and Maxine, he does. But they get released 7 hours later, which is kind of a question mark for everyone. They're like, what's going on? But don't forget, the girls still haven't been found at this point. This is over 2 weeks later, and these nearly 2 weeks later, these girls still haven't been found. So on August the 17th, 2 people walking through some woodland come across the charred remains of 2 bodies. Obviously, they don't know who it is, but this was countrywide, so everyone had a fair idea. So the police automatically come out, do DNA tests, but it's not that. Nearby, there are fibres from Jessica and Holly's red Man United shirts, so they know it's the girls, and it's the girls. They were just dumped in the woods, and they had been burnt, and their parents couldn't see them. The parents were advised, you can't see them. They were told it was Holly and Jessica. And that's why it broke the country's hearts, because it was 2 young girls, just lives just taken. you know, it was just devastating. It was unheard of, and it was a shock. And I know it shouldn't matter where you're from, but like, you know, it's such a rural, lovely place where any one of us would think it'd be lovely to bring up your children, that something like this has happened. So later on that day, they arrest Ian and Maxine again, get a warrant for his house, you know, to search his house, and they find the fibres of the Man United t-shirts as well in the house to prove they had been in there. So charge them both at the time with murder, you know. So they're both pleading not guilty. They're both insisting, you know, they haven't done anything, you know. And then to add insult to injury, Ian, once he's sent to, you know, wherever he was held while the court case was being prepared, pretends to be insane, starts, you know, pretends catatonic, and he's dribbling, and it's all just a game to him, because there's cameras in prisons, and when there wasn't any doctors around, or, you know, anyone who he thought would be watching him closely, he'd be perfectly fine, perfectly normal. And then next thing you know, a doctor will come in, a solicitor will come in, and he'd just be dribbling, really over-icing it, as the profiler says in Faking It Tears of a Crime, you know, real overkill on this. And it was able to be proved in court, you know, that it was an act. There was nothing wrong with the guy whatsoever. Not in the sense of mental illness, let's say. You know, and they start bringing the evidence in, and like I say, the fibres from the girls' t-shirts, you know, proof that Maxine wasn't in Grimsby. She was in Grimsby, she wasn't in Soham the day the girls disappeared. And also, what also got in court as well is when he was so happy to do all these press interviews, why do they, you know, Tracy Andrews, Ben Butler, why do they put themselves on TV? It's crazy. You know, you've just done this heinous crime, and your first thought is to broadcast yourself all over the world. It just beggars belief. But yeah, when he was giving one of these interviews, when the detectives, you know, obviously still trying to gain evidence and, you know, everything against him, they noticed on his car where he was being filmed, and Jeremy Thompson, the reporter, and him were talking, the camera turned and it showed his car. And when they looked closely at that footage, they noticed his tyres were brand new. So the girls were found at RAF Blakenheath. It's an American air base, and to get there you have to go off-road. So they thought, well, he would have had to have moved the girls from the house somehow. It must have been his car. So they start gaining evidence from the car, and underneath, even though he changed the tyres when he'd done his own forensic clean-up, where underneath the car by the suspension, I think, there was all these particles from the road. Like I say, it was off-road, so there was a lot of sand and, you know, different materials that had all left a trace underneath his car. So they were able to prove that he'd been there, you know. And, you know, eventually, you know, he tries to give a reason that the girls knocked on and they'd come in, and Holly had got a nosebleed, apparently, upstairs in the bathroom when he was trying to clean her up in the bathroom, she fell into a bath that he'd run and drowned. And then when Jessica realised this had happened and started screaming, he strangled her to stop her to scream. Even as I'm saying it, I just feel like I've just lost 10 brain cells. It's just, how how would anyone believe that story? But the horrible part about this is no one will ever know, because that's the story he gave, and that's the story he's continued to tell to this day. He doesn't say what happened or what, you know, how the two girls died. It's disgraceful. But he was found guilty of murder, and he was given, this was in Court 1 of the Old Bailey, so, you know, huge case. He was found guilty, and he was given, what was he given? He was given 40 years, but they don't think he'll ever be released. Maxine Carr, she was found guilty of the first in the course of justice. Now, she was only given 3.5 years, and she only did half of that, got released, and got a new identity. And they tried to say that she was giving him an alibi, but she didn't know what he'd done up to that point. But for 2 weeks, she did. She knew what he'd done. She had to have known what he'd done. You know, I'm shocked. I'm shocked. I don't know how she got away with just doing less than 2 years, and then getting a new identity. I don't. You know, they've said, you know, the chances of Ian Huntley ever being released, you know, are minimal. You know, I do like to show and only talk about what's on the show, but I have read that he's now said he wouldn't even try and get parole through respect for the parents of Holly and Jessica, and, you know, he expresses remorse and, you know, thought about them on their 18th birthday and 21st. He feels that bad, yet he still won't tell the parents exactly what happened that day. Just despicable people, you know. You can see why it was called the case that broke Britain's hearts. It was just so pointless, you know. It was an opportunist as well. You know, he would never have known them girls were gonna walk along, you know, there, and he'd have that opportunity. So it wasn't even planned. He just did it. And they're saying it's because he got away with so many crimes while he was living in Grimsby that he'd got that cocky. He was only going to get worse, considering, like I say, one of the crimes in Grimsby, he hit an 11-year-old over the head and then assaulted her. You know, it was only going to get worse. So a lot of authorities did also get a lot of stick in the fallout of this. You know, there was a superintendent that was, you know, I think got in a lot of trouble anyway for not coming back off his holiday sooner. You know, he stayed on holiday while the girls were missing. You know, a lot of kick off over the fact that Cambridgeshire wasn't aware of Huntley's history in Grimsby. You know, that wasn't checked. So that was a good thing that came out of this tragedy, was that now, you know, sexual predators, you know, it's a shared database, and police agencies can find out what's happened in other cities, you know. But they even say at the end of the programme, could this happen again? Could another Ian Huntley happen? And, you know, a lot of the experts say, well, yeah, it still could happen, because, you know, information still isn't shared the way it should be from city to city. Yeah, it's just scary to think that something like that could happen again. And if it could happen in such a quiet little town. I mean, the fact that he moved somewhere like that, where I suppose he knew people would be off guard because you'd think you were safe there. It's just such a sad, and, you know, all murders are pointless. It's just, it was just terrible. It was terrible. It was just such a shame of these poor little girls. And yeah, lots, give me your opinion, you know, drop it in the comments. or if you'd like me to look at anything, if there's any shows you'd like to look at or discuss, please let me know. Also, it'd be lovely if you wanted to press the subscribe button after. I'd really appreciate that too. And yes, the next case I'd like to look at, the next one, same program. Actually, this is over 2 programs. It's Britain's Darkest Taboos and Baking It Tears of a Crime, and that's the Philpotts. In fact, there's been a lot on these 2. Yeah, so I'd like to talk about that case next with you. Thank you very much for joining me again, and I'll see you soon. Thank you.